State Province. If you can just maybe react by giving me a thumbs up if I'm audible and clear enough for our meeting. Everyone can hear me fine, then I suppose we are good to go. Thanks so much, Neil. Please understand as well, I do realize that you are an Afrikaans learner, so I hope that it's fine if I continue our discussion in English, as this will be shared with all the learners across the Free State Province. So if you're fine with that, then we will move ahead. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so that we can start our meeting. All right. Okay, so the whole point of this discussion here is, I think you're writing your IT grade 12 practical examination. I think you're writing that on Wednesday, if I'm not sure. I'm not sure in the morning or the afternoon, but the whole point of today's session is to get you in the loop with what to expect exactly in the exam that's coming on Wednesday. So we're only going to discuss the practical content at this particular moment. I think another session will be held for the P2 before you are writing that. So I'd like to continue to the second slide of my presentation. So on the second slide here, we have got, so it's 3 June, 1 o'clock. There we go. That's the time. And then we've got 3-hour exam, so 3 hours to write, and the 150 marks distributed across the 4 core modules. Okay, we're going to discuss each one of the 4 core modules now. You are very welcome to tell me if you have any question. You can stop me at any time. Just raise your hand and I'll give you an opportunity to ask a question. So I would like to speak about the golden ratio of your exam execution, how much time you physically have to spend on each of the questions. Okay, you must understand that question 4 has got a higher cognitive demand than the other questions, meaning it's got a lot more problem-solving elements inside. So even though the mark allocation is only 30 marks compared to the 40 marks of the other sections, it might require a bit more time to complete that in. So that's why we're not simply dividing into the total amount of minutes that you have, but we are allocating them into the time that you require more or less to complete each question. So the minutes per mark that you have, it's supposed to be 1 minute per mark. So you are in an advantaged position because you get 1.2 minutes per mark. So that means it's 180 minutes, 3 hours, divided by the 150 marks, and this would be the pace that you will that would be required of you to complete the paper in. So your general questions, your general programming, it's 40 marks. You get plus minus 48 minutes max to answer this question in. Now, usually learners answer this in a bit less time than what is allocated here because of the nature that this is the one that is the least cognitive demanding out of all the questions. So this is based on the grade 10 work that you had to do. Question 2, you also get 48 minutes to answer 40 marks. So that's your database, your Delphi code, and your SQL statements. Then we have question 3, your OOP question, which will be 40 marks, also 48 minutes. And then here, this 30 marks, we're allocating 36 minutes. So I would really try and answer these questions to the best of my ability, and then take whatever time I've got left trying to answer question 4. And then if you manage to answer question 4 and there's still time left, you can always go back through all your other questions and see if there isn't any mistakes or something that you left to answer later. Okay, so it's going to be a bit tougher now, this June exam, September exam, and especially the November one, because you're going to need to take a look at the amount of time that you have. Otherwise, a lot of kids never get to answering question 4 because their time management was executed poorly. And that means sometimes question 4, if it's got a 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, a lot of the time 4.1 is very easy to complete, and then you simply throw away those marks due to the fact that you couldn't get time to complete that question. So I would in my question 1 first. So after answering question 1, I would go for question 2, then question 3, then question 4. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. So general programming, like I said, question 1, 40 marks. Then question 2, database, SQL and Delphi. And then your object-oriented programming, and then your problem solving and arrays. Okay, this is more or less the way it was for the last, I don't know how many years. Okay, so this is your set module focus, the mark weighting, and the core objectives. So your core objectives for your question 1 would be your GUI, your user interface, and core logic, as explained to you. That's more or less looping and what whatever that was discussed in grade 10. Then here's your relational extraction, working with one or many tables, as well as your create, read, update, and delete statements. Here's the blueprint, like you have to do your unit first and then do the calling statements in the main class, and we work with encapsulation, your attributes being private and the methods being public in nature. And your last one is your algorithmic manipulation, where you have to do problem solving and develop your own unique solutions to the problems presented. Now, let's go on to question 1. Question 1, 40 marks. So here it is mostly component control, okay, for question 1.1. So here you would find stuff like, you can see a little bit here to the left, you need to do input. You need to now to do input in your edit, spin edit, whatever input components that you have, even input boxes. You need to be able to work with checkboxes, buttons, and manipulate the components themselves. So this could be height, width, color, clearing components, and actively placing the focus, like your edt name.set focus or whatever. So it would be working with components. It could also include like .font.name, .font.style, .font.size. So it's not only pertaining to components, but the font of the components as well. Input output mechanisms will be at play. You need to extract user input seamlessly, either from an input box or any input component. You need to be able to utilize checkboxes for Boolean states and trigger dialog boxes, like I said, for user alerts. So it's your show message or input box to get your input if there's no component available. Typecasting is also very important here, as well as formatting your output into either a certain amount of decimal places or to currency or whatever the case may be. Okay, so what's also important to remember here is all your mathematical functions, from your floor, ceil, round, div, mod, your string functions would be like the copy, insert, delete, pause to determine the position, and an and. So all of this that you've done from grade 10 to 12, your string functions and procedures, as well as your the rest, as I've discussed with you now, including the typecasting and an and. So this would be what question 1 is about. So here it's always the high scoring question, because this has got easier questions in its nature. So that's your 40 marks. Now we continue on to your processing engine. So this is also for the question 1. So here your control structures, your if then else, nested if, looping, nested loops, string variable creation, working with strings or character manipulation, working with each character separately, typecasting, and all of that. So this is just a little example here of mathematical functions. So you can just see like a little flow chart. You're going to start, and here it's going to check the condition. If it's true or false, it's going to execute or not, and. So everything that I've discussed with you, that would form part of question 1. It is important to remember that nested looping as well. Here I see on the presentation there's no mention of the case. You're going to need to be able to utilize a case as well. Remember, your exam can ask you to use a case or use a nested if, so you need to be fluent in the use or the application of both of those. Please remember, a case statement can only work with ordinal data types like char or your integer, and then your nested if could work with all of them: char, integer, a real, and string. But a real and a string would not be able to work with the case. Okay, so all of this is at play in question 1. Any questions that you have about question 1 itself before we move on to question 2? Anything that you are unsure of, or anything that you would like to ask? Okay, now we continue on to question 2. Question 2 is our database question. So I'm just going to sum it up for you quickly as well, whatever is the requirement for question 2. So for question 2, you need to be able to do your select statements, either select star for all or simply select some of your fields. Should be able to select only distinct fields, like those that differ from one another, that have unique values. You need to be able to select, do a calculation and saving it as a certain field name. You should remember that your square brackets allows spaces in the name of the new field, and if there are no spaces, no square brackets is a requirement. At your selected statement, you need to be able to format to currency or fixed with a certain amount of decimal places. And obviously you need to be able to use order by to sort your tables in either ascending or descending order. You should be able to use your where operators. So of your where clause, with the operators being smaller than, greater than, equal to, or smaller than, equal to, greater than, equal to, or the not equal to statement as well, which is just the this one and that one next to one another. So you should also be able to use the like. with the wildcard operator. So you should be able to search for any part of a word being this, or you should say if a word starts with the letter this but ends with whatever, or starts with whatever but ends with this, should be able to have all of that. Your between, like when you say where age between 1 and 18, for example, is null to specify your blanks, and then your dates must be in between the hashtags to have the correct syntax. Okay, you should be able to do all the data aggregation, meaning that you should be able to work with sum, min, max, average, count, top, combine securely with group by and having. So remember, if we say we would only like to show the totals per grade, okay, but only where the amount of learners in each grade is greater than 15, then you would know that your aggregation must happen after the group by statement. Okay, so you should be very clear on the having would be, if I can put it in layman's terms, the having would be the where clause of a group by. So if there's no group by, then you might be tempted to use the where at the top. And if there is a group by, you might be tempted to using the having at the bottom. But it all depends on criteria. Would you need to filter criteria before grouping, or would you need to filter the results after the grouping? It's where the difference between the where and the having comes into play. So it's very important to be able to know that, to distinguish between those and to apply it correctly. And then your string or math tooling that's required would be your round, int, length, left, right, mid, and all the other ones that are available in your CAPS document, okay, or that was discussed with you by your teacher. So please be able to know all of this well. Where the issue usually comes in is if learners are not well prepared enough, your brain can't make the logical link between the information that is known versus what is unknown. And in the exam, learners struggle because their brain can't find those links between what the question wants and what the output should be. So it's just very important that you people prepare very well and know where to use each of these in whatever scenario. And the last thing is the relational bridge, which means you must be able to work with two tables at the same time. And that is where the primary key is equal to the foreign key. It is the single join. You don't have to worry about joining more than those. You should only know that, let's say there was a learner ID here, this was the learners and this was their classes. Then it means that a class can have many learners, but a learner can only belong to one class at the same time, which means that your learner ID will be your primary key field in the learner table, and it would then be the foreign key field in the other table. So you should be able to work with those both in SQL as well as in the Delphi code. We go on to speak about the CRUD operation, or the CRUD protocol, which simply means create, read, update, and delete. You should be able to insert new records. You should be able to navigate data sets by using the .next for your tables, either nested or in a single table loop. You should be able to modify individual fields with your edit statements, and you should be able to remove records. You should be able to delete. Now, inserting records could be one or multiple records to be inserted. Navigating your data sets, like I already said, it could be simply going to the next record in a single table or in a nested table structure. Should be able to modify individual or multiple fields, and then here you should be able to remove single or multiple records. Also take note that it is very important that you are able to remove not only, let's say, for example, to remove record 7 or the record that's got Willem de Wit as the name and the surname, but also to remove records according to criteria, meaning that you have your .delete inside of a while loop. Okay, so apply all changes to your live database object using the .post would obviously be a requirement for insert and for update. Okay, so should be able to know all of these in both SQL as well as in Delphi code. Okay, let's go on to, let me first ask if there's any question by question number 2. Um, I'm going to continue. I hope I'm still audible enough. That it's not that you don't have, it's that you don't have any questions, but not that you can't hear me. So I really hope that everything is still well. Okay, let's go on to question number 3. So this is what question number 3 is about. It's about OOP. Okay, so you will have your class object, you would have your private attributes, and you would have your methods. Okay, so then you would have your main program in which you're going to call, firstly, instantiate your object and then call all your methods in the main class. So they can either give you a blueprint like this, which is a UML diagram, class diagram, or they can just give it to you in the form of questions. Okay, so they would usually always give you all of the private attributes and the physical declaration of the class object and whatever at the top in your form in your unit class. Okay, so it would usually be requested of you to code your methods. Okay, sometimes some of them are provided incomplete, or sometimes they tell you create a constructor method that would do the following, that would receive 4 parameters. And then let's take this one, for example. It could be that they're saying you're getting 3 attributes and then you would need to say, for example, like if name is equal to s name, and then if age is equal to ih, and then I don't know, whatever. And then it can be asked of you to either get all 3 of these as parameters to set their default values, or it could be that you only get 1 or 2, and the other ones you need to send to default values, which is usually like ih would be equal to 0 and s name would be equal to 2 single inverted commas next to one another. So you should be able to do it either way around, and you should be able to work with a parameterized constructor or a non-parameterized constructor. Okay, so both of those would have been discussed with you in class. Now, usually in this part, to do these codes, your mutators, your setters, and your getters are easy. I mean, those could be studied from memory. And then your auxiliary methods is usually the ones that require you to have like a little nested if statement or whatever inside. So let's say, for example, you had your age. And then you would say, if the learner's age is 14, they would be in grade 8. But if their age is 15, they would be in grade 9. If their age is, and so on, to specify. I mean, that's a simple example, but stuff like that could be part of an auxiliary method. Okay, your constructor and your toString is mostly studyable from memory as well. So please just ensure that you remember the formats of everything well before you get to the exam. So here, you need to manage nested if logic and dynamically enable or disable components based on the object state. So this would be in your main program, and then calling statements for your methods used in the main class, nested if statements, basic calculations, and enabling and disabling components. Remember, you can say a component.enabled is equal to true, component.enabled is equal to false, or if you need to hide them, you can say component.hide, component.show, or you can say component.visible is equal to true, component.visible is equal to false. All of those different variations must be studied beforehand, and you must know quickly how to apply those correctly in the scenarios given in the paper. Okay, so that's also 40 marks, right? Is there any questions about question 3? And now I'm just going to ask, if at all possible, if someone can just give me a shop if there is no questions. We only have 5 minutes left on our meeting. Thank you so much, Neil. Right, okay. Mr. Romanizzi, Mr. Rama, welcome. Thank you very much for joining, sir. Really appreciate it. I will, you missed most of it, but I will make the recording available after the session to share with your learners. Thanks so much, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rama. Right, so let's go.
Hmm?
I muted my mic. I'm so sorry. I've only I told you a whole story. I'll quickly repeat that. So, question 4. You should work here with single dimensional arrays. There is no 2-dimensional arrays in the June exam. The 2-dimensional arrays will form part of your exam in November. Okay, so you need to work with 1-dimensional arrays. So you need to be able to do a linear search, calculating totals and averages across the array's length, like for example, adding all of these together or creating an average of some kind. And then you should be acute, flawless, first principle, parallel selection sort without relying on the built-in sorting methods. Okay, so this is all examples of how you should get to that. And now this is our second to last slide. So this is just how all of these fit together into one. That is just for your interest. And then this one. Now you should have yourself this checklist. Have I mastered typecasting? Do I know the exact syntax? Can I write methods for a constructor? And can I do parallel selection sorting? Okay, so all of these are very important in order for you to be able to master the paper one exam. So you possess the blueprint, you have the logic. Trust your preparation on June the 3rd, and everything will go extremely well with your papers. I wish you the best of luck. This is the end of our briefing session. If there are any questions, I'll remain a minute or so behind after greeting you. If you want to still ask something, I'll be sure to share this recording with your teachers so that they can in turn share it with you before you prepare for your final exam. Wish you the best of luck. I know all of us have worked very hard in these first 2 terms. I know IT is not your only subject that you have to focus on, but I really wish you all the best. Thank you very much for attending my session. Enjoy the preparation for your exam, and I will see you again for our next session before your paper 2. Thanks so much and enjoy your day. Bye-bye.